Sam, here to talk about Strong Female Character by Fern Brady. This is a autistic memoir. It's about, Fern writes about her road to being diagnosed, the struggles she had before being diagnosed, and how some of those struggles should have made it very clear she was autistic earlier than when she managed to get people to believe it. And then goes into present day and her continuing struggles of being autistic. Fern Brady is a Scottish comedian. I am not familiar with any of her work. I had never heard of her. I still haven't watched anything, any of her stand-up or any clips of her. I've only read the book, so that is kind of my only focus in this video. I might try and watch some of her stand-up just out of curiosity, although it doesn't sound like maybe it would necessarily be my thing. Now, to be clear, I am autistic. I have a video about it that I made a few years ago, but I was diagnosed while at university. Sorry, the cat. And so I was autistic, as a child, undiagnosed, and then diagnosed at age like 19 or 20. I always knew I was different, but so did everyone else. And I was very fortunate to have been part of a pilot program in our schools for gifted and talented kids, which most of us turned out to be also autistic. And therefore, I think while it's really, really great to read a book about autism, especially in women, and how it can be different and perceived differently, then, sorry, but he just was not going to shut up. And you know how Crowley is, if you watch this channel at all. He can be a mess. He is now in the room with me, so don't be surprised if the camera shakes around and he gets in the way and does all kinds of stuff. In any case, as I was saying, it's great to have an autistic woman write about her experiences. I think it's really important to get that information like in front of people and out there and not hide it. Autistics, we mask, we pass as normal for as long as we can, and then we need to kind of reset. But at the same time, it's also very clear from reading this, where I identified with some of this and really didn't identify at all with a lot of it, that like autism, it's an individual thing, and that your environment and your culture plays a large part in how you come to cope with it. Like I said, I was fortunate enough to have a kind of support system built for me in my schools. Now, when they put us back in Gin Pop, as we called it, when that program ended and we were just back in regular classes, that was a hard adjustment. But at least I knew other kids like me. My parents, they didn't understand it, but my dad is very likely also autistic, and he and I were a lot alike, so I never felt like, oh, my whole family doesn't get me, I'm the odd one out, or anything like that. And so I was fortunate in that way. Now, Fern Brady talks about being, institutionalized as a child at one point, cutting herself, doing self-harm. She talks about being promiscuous. These are not things that I didn't experience these things. I don't want to take away from her experience or other people who have had that experience, but those were places where I wasn't really connecting with the story because it was just so different from my experience as an autistic person. But I could understand, her pain is very, very real throughout this book. Go in, trigger warning, right? It was hard to read at times, and also, again, to me, a little bit baffling, and yet she is, in the autistic way, very kind of even-handed. almost offhanded about it. She's just like, this is what I was thinking at the time. This is how I felt. I didn't know how to cope with that, so this is what I did. And yeah, we can kind of separate ourselves out that way. Autistic people can kind of pull back, and it's almost like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. She does a good job of explaining some of the thought processes. I thought it was interesting. After the fact, I read some reviews, and people were like, she seems like a horrible person. She's using autism as an excuse to be mean and stuff like that. And I was like, I didn't really pick that up. I mean, I don't think she and I would be best buddies or anything, but I didn't get the sense that she was using it as an excuse or anything. She was really just trying to explain, this is where I was coming from, and I didn't know how else to act or what else to say, or, you know, the burden to fit in and mask and pass as normal. I guess I never felt it as much because in my pilot classroom, we were very much allowed to just kind of be ourselves, do as we did. There was never like a fear of saying the wrong thing. We ribbed one another, but we were a group that looped with the same teacher and the same group of kids for several years. So we were just very familiar and comfortable with one another by the end of all that. And, you know, you kind of came to admire different people in the group for their different abilities. We knew Ian was really good with the computer, you know, so-and-so was good with math. I was the creative one, like writing poetry or whatever. You know, we had you know, just, I don't know, and ones who could like build stuff, and ones, there were only like, I don't know, maybe 12 of us, and it was, I sometimes wonder where those kids went. I know where one of them is, and that's it. So I don't know where the rest of them went. But yeah, it was a good situation. I do feel like that kind of thing would not be amiss. But I know integration is the big push in American classrooms, you know, and I can see why people want that too. I don't know. Anyway, I'm not going to get into it. I'm just going to say this book, I gave it like a 3.8. It started out, I thought, oh, this is going to be a 5-star. And then we got into some stuff that I was like, I don't know, I didn't connect with, and I didn't actually find very interesting. It felt a little repetitive there towards the middle. And then it ended a little more strongly. So it starts out with her talking about some modern stuff, and then she goes back and loosely chronologically goes through the difficulties that she experienced in school, being institutionalized, going to uni and trying to navigate that stuff. Again, like for me, going away to uni was not, well, and she's 10 years younger than me too, so there's cultural thing, there's an age difference, because like, I guess having grown up Gen X, the tail end of Gen X, like, we kind of got really comfortable with, you either do it, figure it out, or you learn to live without it. Like, those were your options. So going away to uni, it was like, okay, I can either figure out where things are, or I'm going to feel miserably and I'm going to just have to find some other path in life. And I didn't want to do that because school felt very safe to me. I didn't know what to do with myself post-school. Like, the idea of anything after school was terrifying to me. So I made it work, I guess. I don't know. Like, so yeah, I did find classrooms, even if it meant leaving an hour early and wandering and being too terrified to ask anybody for help, carrying a map of the campus and like staring at it and trying to make sense of that, and, you know, things like that. Over time, I got a little bit more comfortable, and I made, you know, some core friends that made it possible for me to have, like, again, that support system. But yeah, it was, I still think it was a good book. I still think it has a lot of value. She speaks with a certain amount of authority, where at times I was like, you can't speak for all of us, because we don't all, I mean, there are some things that I think are probably universal in autistic people and autistic women. I know, like, I'm sure people thought I was just such a bitch or a snob or something when I was in high school, when in truth I was just so incredibly terrified of everyone around me. I barely ever spoke. There was one guy who wrote in my yearbook one year, like, and now you even talk to me sometimes, or something like that. And I felt so bad. So Topher, if you're out there, I promise I have like this like mute response when I'm like overwhelmed or confused, or, like my brain short circuits and then my mouth doesn't work. So I'm sorry, Topher. You were always so nice, and I did really like you, okay? But yeah, so it's a good book, but sometimes, like I said, it speaks a little authoritatively in ways where I'm like, well, I wouldn't necessarily 100% agree with that, or that might be true sometimes, but not all the time, or not true for everyone, or, you have to remember this is one person's story, but it is important, I think, to tell our stories, and to be honest about, here comes the cat, to be honest about, like, it's hard for us to articulate sometimes, too, like the feelings involved, but like, sorry, Crowley, I've got to watch him because he's about to do something he shouldn't, almost assert. Don't chew that. Don't. He's behind. He's chewing camera. Anyway, I'm rambling, and I thought it was a good book. Not great, not perfect by any means. Like I said, there's kind of this point, like, it starts good. There was this dip where I was like less interested, and then it got more interesting around like 50-60% again. For me, and that's a personal thing. She talks about like becoming a stripper and things like that, and I was just like, okay, we get it, but like, did we need it to? And it's not a long book. It's only like 285 pages, so maybe it was just it needed padding. I don't know, or as autistics tend to do, we tend to repeat things in order to be clear about them. And I'm sorry, he's like playing with something he shouldn't. Okay, stop that. And I think she even mentions at one point, where like, you keep telling the same story over and over. Crowley, stop! You keep telling the same story over and over. Stories over and over. And I'm like, yeah, we do, because we don't feel heard a lot of the time, so we assume you didn't like pay attention the first 12 times we told it or whatever. What are you doing, sir? Why? Why are you doing that? Okay. I'm gonna wrap this up. That was Strong Female Character by Fern Brady. If you've read it, let me know. If you have any thoughts about her, like, should I watch some of her stand-up? Is it good? She talks about being on a show called Taskmaster, which I've never heard of. It must be I don't know, it's a British thing, I don't know. But, yeah, she talks about being overwhelmed when she's overscheduled, and I definitely have that. I have good old personal meltdowns when that happens. I've learned to, like, try not to overschedule myself, because I will just fall apart. Like, that's really important. I need a lot of downtime, a lot of alone time. It kind of drives my family crazy that I hole up in my office most days, but I can't, like, this is the autistic, like, the overstimulation, and like, it's too much, but yeah, it's, so if you've read it, if you know anything about her or her work, if you have other autistic books or resources that you'd like to share, please do. I'm always looking for stuff like that. I have not read the Temple Grandin thing. I've heard that that's a great one, and I should probably read it, but I haven't read a whole lot. This book I just found, actually my husband found it at the library and just like picked it up and was like, this sounds like something that would interest you or that you would relate to or whatever, and so I read it. But yeah, that's it. Now I've got to let the cat back out of the room. And until next time, take care.